The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark cathedral, its hull gleaming with patterns that hurt human eyes to look at. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the window of humanity's diplomatic vessel, watching the Council mothership grow larger as they approached. Her hands were steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. "They could vaporize us right now," Captain Rodriguez said behind her. His voice was calm, but Sarah knew him well enough to hear the tension underneath. "They won't," Sarah replied. "They want to talk first. Give us a chance to surrender." The past 6 months had been a whirlwind since humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. The breakthrough came from Dr. Kim's research team, who figured out how to fold space using controlled nuclear reactions. It was crude compared to what they would later discover, but it worked. Within weeks, human ships were jumping between stars. First contact happened 3 months ago, when a human exploration vessel encountered a Council patrol. The aliens were polite but firm. Humanity was new. They needed to follow the rules. There were forms to fill out, restrictions to accept, and most importantly, limits to respect. The Council had been running the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Hundreds of different species lived under their protection, all following the same basic laws. No weapons above a certain power level, no expansion beyond approved zones, no technology that could threaten the greater good. Humanity had listened to these rules and politely declined to follow them. Now Sarah was here to face the consequences. The Council's message had been clear: submit or be destroyed. But what the Council didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this meeting since the day they learned they weren't alone. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer called. "Out." The main screen flickered to life, showing the Council chamber. Sarah had seen recordings before, but being there in real time was different. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that her brain struggled to process their forms. At the center sat the High Arbitrator, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a tree. Its voice came through the translator as a pleasant, reasonable tone that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Ambassador Chen of the species calling itself humanity," the High Arbitrator began. "You stand before the Galactic Council to receive judgment. I stand here to represent my people," Sarah replied. Nothing more, nothing less. A ripple of movement went through the chamber. Several alien delegates made sounds that the translator couldn't interpret, but Sarah could guess their meaning. Humans weren't supposed to talk back. "Your species has violated 17 major statutes and 43 minor regulations since achieving interstellar flight," the High Arbitrator continued. "You have developed weapons technology beyond approved limits. You have expanded into restricted zones. Most seriously, you have refused repeated requests to submit to Council authority." Sarah had expected this. The humans had indeed broken the rules, starting from the moment they built their first FTL drive. The Council considered nuclear-powered engines to be borderline illegal. They definitely considered humanity's habit of converting civilian ships into potential weapons to be a major violation. "We weren't aware of your laws when we broke them," Sarah said, "and we don't recognize your authority to enforce them on us now." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens clicked, others buzzed, and a few made sounds like breaking glass. The High Arbitrator raised one of its blade-like arms and silence returned. "You will submit," it said. "Your species will reduce its technology to approved levels. You will accept monitoring stations on all your worlds. You will relocate your populations to designated reserve systems where you can be properly supervised." Sarah felt cold. She had known this was coming, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. The Council wanted to turn humanity into pets. Dangerous animals that needed to be caged for everyone's safety. "And if we refuse?" she asked. "Then you will be eliminated," the High Arbitrator said simply. "Your species is too dangerous to be allowed freedom. You develop too quickly. You adapt too fast. You show no respect for the natural order that has kept the galaxy peaceful for millennia." Behind the diplomatic words, Sarah heard the real message. The Council was afraid. These ancient, powerful civilizations looked at humanity's rapid rise and saw a threat they couldn't control. Better to destroy the humans now than risk them becoming competitors later. "You have one standard cycle to decide," the High Arbitrator continued. "Accept our terms or face the consequences. The Council has unanimous support for this action. Over 3,000 warships stand ready to enforce our will." Sarah straightened her shoulders. She had prepared for this moment, but it still felt surreal. In the next few seconds, she would either save humanity or doom it. "High Arbitrator," she said formally. "I speak for all of humanity when I say this. We reject your authority. We reject your terms. And we reject your threats." The chamber fell silent. Sarah could feel the shock radiating from the alien delegates. In 10,000 years of council history, no species had ever directly refused an ultimatum like this. "You do not understand," the High Arbitrator said slowly. "We offer you a chance to survive as a supervised species. If you refuse, you will simply cease to exist." "You don't understand either," Sarah replied. "Humans don't kneel. We never have and we never will. If you want to destroy us, then come and try." She turned to Captain Rodriguez. "Get us out of here." As their ship pulled away from the council mothership, Sarah could see the massive alien fleet beginning to move. Thousands of vessels, each one more advanced than humanity's best ships. They moved with the confidence of a species that had never lost a war. "Sarah," Rodriguez said quietly, "are you sure about this? They could wipe us out." "Maybe," Sarah admitted, "but they're going to try anyway. At least this way we go down fighting." She opened a channel to Earth. The delay was barely noticeable thanks to quantum entanglement communications, another technology the Council disapproved of. "Command, this is Ambassador Chen. The Council has declared war. Repeat, we are at war with the Galactic Council. Initiate Protocol 7 immediately." The response came back within seconds. Protocol 7 confirmed. "All assets are moving into position." "Good luck, Sarah." She closed the channel and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human colony ships were transforming into warships. Hidden factories were coming online. Weapons that had been built in secret were being loaded into launch tubes. The Council thought they knew what humanity was capable of. They had studied human technology, analyzed human behavior, and calculated human military potential. They had decided that humanity was dangerous but manageable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The alien fleet began to accelerate toward human space, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Behind them, Sarah's diplomatic ship jumped to FTL, carrying news of humanity's declaration of independence. The war had begun. But as the Council would soon discover, humans had been preparing for this war since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was considered a death world, and why its children had inherited more than just their planet's capacity for violence. The Council had made one critical mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. Now they would face the consequences of that error. Admiral Zara Khan had destroyed 47 worlds in her 1,000-year military career. She commanded the Council's Third Fleet, 300 warships that had never known defeat. As her force dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system, she felt the familiar calm that came before an easy victory. "Target analysis complete," her tactical officer reported. The creature's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as it processed data. "Human defensive positions are primitive. Their largest ships are barely frigate-class by our standards." Zara Khan studied the tactical display. Earth hung in the center, surrounded by a thin shell of human vessels. Mining platforms, colony ships, even converted cargo haulers. It looked like the humans had thrown together everything they could find and called it a fleet. Typical mammalian panic response, she noted. "Begin the assault. Focus fire on their command ships first." The Council fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Plasma cannons charged to full power. Energy shields hummed with stored energy. This would be over quickly. The first surprise came when the human cargo haulers suddenly accelerated to attack speed. Their hulls split open, revealing weapon ports that should have been impossible to hide. Nuclear missiles streamed out in clouds, followed by something the Council scanners couldn't identify. "Kinetic projectiles," the tactical officer announced. "Solid metal rounds moving at significant fractions of light speed." Zara Khan frowned. Kinetic weapons were primitive, but at those velocities they could be dangerous. "Activate point defense." This changes nothing. The Council ships opened fire. Plasma beams lanced out, bright enough to be seen across the solar system. Energy weapons that could crack moons struck the approaching human vessels. The first wave of human ships simply vanished, vaporized by technology they couldn't hope to match. But there were more ships behind them. "Many more. Admiral?" The tactical officer's voice carried a note of confusion. "I'm reading over 2,000 human vessels." Where did they all come from? Zara Khan looked at the display again. Human ships were emerging from everywhere. Behind asteroids, from the dark side of moons, even from what looked like empty space. As she watched, a massive human vessel uncloaked directly above Earth's North Pole. Stealth technology, she muttered. Impossible. The Council would have detected any development of cloaking systems. The human counterattack began in earnest. Nuclear warheads detonated against Council shields, creating brilliant flowers of destruction. Most were stopped, but the sheer volume was overwhelming the defensive systems. And between the nuclear blasts came those kinetic rounds. Tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic launchers. The first Council ship died when a converted human mining vessel rammed directly into its command section. The human ship was destroyed instantly, but the Council dreadnought cracked like an egg, atmosphere venting into space. Ramming attacks? Zara Khan couldn't believe what she was seeing. What kind of species uses ramming attacks? More human ships began suicide runs. Colony vessels filled with nuclear warheads crashed into Council formations. Cargo haulers packed with antimatter charges detonated in brilliant flashes that lit up the darkness. The humans were throwing away their ships like they didn't matter, but that wasn't the worst of it. The worst came when the human Marines arrived. Council ships were designed to repel borders. Force fields, automated defenses, and security systems perfected over millennia. No one had successfully boarded a Council vessel in over 1,000 years. The humans didn't seem to know this was impossible. The boarding pods were crude metal boxes launched from human ships at suicidal speeds. Most were destroyed by point defense, but enough got through. They punched through Council hulls like bullets through paper, and humans poured out wearing primitive armor and carrying chemical projectile weapons. They're using gunpowder, one Council captain reported over the communication network. Actual gunpowder weapons. Our shields don't stop them. That was the problem. Council energy shields were designed to stop plasma bolts and particle beams. They were useless against solid metal bullets traveling at a few thousand feet per second. The human weapons were so primitive that advanced defenses couldn't adapt to them. Human soldiers moved through Council ships like death incarnate. They used explosives that filled corridors with fire and shrapnel. They fought with knives and bare hands when their ammunition ran out. Worst of all, they kept fighting even when mortally wounded, using their last moments to trigger explosive charges. Fall back to defensive positions, Zara Khan ordered. This was not going according to plan. That was when the humans revealed their biggest surprise. The attack came from a human vessel that looked like a converted research station. It fired a single projectile, not at any Council ship, but at empty space between the fleets. The projectile was small, barely the size of a human fist, but when it activated, space itself seemed to twist. The artificial intelligence materialized as a cloud of self-replicating nanobots, each one programmed with combat algorithms that the Council had banned as too dangerous to develop. The swarm fell on the nearest Council ships like a plague, eating through hulls and converting the raw materials into more copies of themselves. AI weapons, Zara Khan whispered. They're using AI weapons. 3 Council ships died in the first minute as the nanobots consumed them from the inside out. The swarm grew exponentially, each consumed ship adding to its mass and intelligence. Within minutes, the artificial intelligence had built itself crude weapon platforms from salvaged materials, and was engaging Council forces with weapons designed on the spot. The final straw came when human reinforcements arrived. Not ships this time, but something else. The massive object that dropped out of FTL near Jupiter looked like an asteroid, but it was moving too fast and in too straight a line. It's a kinetic kill vehicle, the tactical officer announced. Planet killer class. It's targeting our command ship. The asteroid had been accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, using fusion engines built into its core. When it hit, the explosion would be visible from across the solar system. Zara Khan had seconds to make a decision. All ships emergency jump, she ordered. Retreat to Rally Point Alpha. The Council fleet began to disengage, but the humans weren't letting them go easily. More suicide ships appeared, trying to prevent the retreat. The artificial intelligence had grown smart enough to hack Council communication systems, broadcasting human battle songs and propaganda across all frequencies. As her flagship jumped to FTL, Zara Khan looked back at the Sol system. Half her fleet was gone, destroyed by a species she had expected to crush in hours. The humans had fought with a savagery that defied understanding, using weapons and tactics that no civilized species would consider. The retreat beacon was already broadcasting on all Council frequencies. Other fleets were reporting similar disasters. The humans weren't just defending their home system, they were counterattacking everywhere at once. On the edge of Council space, monitoring stations went dark as human strike forces emerged from hyperspace. Ancient fortress worlds found themselves under assault by converted colony ships filled with nuclear warheads. Even the Council's most secure facilities were being hit by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. Zara Khan pulled up the strategic overview. Red markers showed human attacks across dozens of systems. The creatures were fast, vicious, and completely unpredictable. They used converted civilian vessels as warships. They equipped soldiers with primitive but effective weapons. Most disturbing of all, they seemed perfectly willing to die if it meant taking Council forces with them. "Send a priority message to the High Council," she ordered. "The humans are more dangerous than we calculated. Recommend immediate deployment of stellar-class weapons." As her message raced toward the Council homeworld, Zara Khan studied the tactical reports. The humans had been preparing for this war longer than anyone realized. Their primitive technology was specifically designed to counter Council advantages. Their tactics were brutal but effective. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to have been holding back during the initial diplomatic contacts. The humans had hidden their true capabilities, letting the Council believe they were weak while secretly preparing for war. The galaxy was about to learn a harsh lesson. Just because humanity was young didn't mean they were naive, and just because they came from a single world didn't mean they were weak. The real war was just beginning. The High Arbitrator stood before the great viewing wall of the Council homeworld, watching the star Kepler 442 die. The stellar manipulation device had taken 3 days to destabilize the star's core, and now the ancient sun was collapsing into a supernova that would sterilize everything within 20 light-years. "The human colony of New Shanghai is confirmed destroyed," reported the military coordinator, "a being that looked like a walking crystal formation. All 2 million inhabitants eliminated. No escape pods detected." It was the 7th human world the Council had destroyed in the past month. Each time they used the stellar manipulation technology that had kept the galaxy peaceful for thousands of years. The threat was simple: behave or your sun goes nova. Humanity's response had been to accelerate their attacks. "Status report on our losses?" the High Arbitrator asked. The military coordinator's crystal structure dimmed slightly. 47 major installations destroyed. 15 fortress worlds under siege. Our shipyard at Vega Prime was completely eliminated 2 days ago. The High Arbitrator tried to process this information. The Council had vastly superior technology and overwhelming numbers. They could destroy stars. How were the humans not only surviving but winning? "Show me the Vega Prime attack," he ordered. The holographic display activated, showing the final moments of the Council's largest shipyard. Vega Prime had been protected by a fleet of 600 warships and a planetary defense grid that could shatter moons. It should have been impossible to attack. The humans had done it anyway. The assault began with what looked like a routine supply convoy. 36 cargo ships dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, broadcasting standard merchant identification codes. The ships were cleared to approach and began their normal docking procedures. Then the cargo ships opened fire. But these weren't normal weapons. The humans had somehow weaponized their FTL drives, turning them into reality-tearing devices that punched holes in space itself. The cargo ships disappeared in flashes of twisted physics, taking large chunks of the space station with them. Before the Council defenders could react, the real attack began. Human warships uncloaked throughout the system, having somehow hidden inside the quantum foam of folded space. They moved with coordination that suggested a level of tactical planning the Council had never seen from humans before. "They're using our own technology against us," the military coordinator observed. "Somehow they've learned to manipulate quantum space in ways we never considered." The High Arbitrator watched human ships dance between Council plasma beams, moving in patterns that defied normal physics. They weren't just faster than expected. They were using short-range space folds to teleport during combat, appearing behind Council vessels and unleashing devastating close-range attacks. The most disturbing part was the humans' apparent disregard for their own safety. Ships would fold space incorrectly on purpose, creating unstable wormholes that consumed both human and Council vessels. It was like they valued destroying their enemies more than preserving their own lives. There, the military coordinator highlighted a section of the battle. Watch this human vessel. A converted human colony ship was surrounded by 3 Council dreadnoughts. Instead of trying to escape, the colony ship activated something the scanners couldn't identify. The ship began to glow, brighter and brighter until sensors had to filter the image to prevent overload. Antimatter detonation, the High Arbitrator guessed. Worse, they converted their entire ship into an artificial black hole. Look at the gravitational readings. The human ship collapsed into a singularity that swallowed all 3 Council dreadnoughts before dissipating into Hawking radiation. The humans had somehow learned to weaponize black holes, turning their own vessels into cosmic bombs. How is this possible? The High Arbitrator demanded. Our scientists said artificial black holes were impossible to control. The humans aren't trying to control them, the military coordinator explained. They're using them as one-time weapons. They don't care if the weapon destroys the user. A new alarm sounded through the council chambers. The High Arbitrator turned to see an aide rushing toward him, multiple arms waving in distress. High Arbitrator, priority alert from the border sectors. What now? The humans have destroyed Rigel Station. All 20 billion inhabitants confirmed dead. The High Arbitrator felt something like cold fear creep through his consciousness. Rigel Station was one of the Council's oldest colonies, protected by technology that predated human civilization by thousands of years. How? The aide activated a portable hologram, showing the final transmission from Rigel Station. The massive space habitat hung in orbit around a gas giant, its shields glowing with defensive energy. Then a human fleet emerged from FTL, but not in the normal way. The human ships materialized inside the station's shields. Impossible, the High Arbitrator whispered. They've learned to fold space with pinpoint accuracy, the aide explained. They jumped directly into the station's interior, bypassing all defenses. The hologram showed human soldiers pouring out of their ships inside Rigel Station's commercial districts. But these weren't normal boarding actions. The humans were releasing something into the air, a gray mist that spread rapidly through the station's atmosphere. Bioweapon? The military coordinator asked. Unknown composition. It appears to be some form of nanotechnology. Watch. The gray mist touched the station's hull and the metal began to dissolve, not melted or burned, but actually broken down at the molecular level. Within minutes, massive sections of Rigel Station were simply gone, consumed by whatever the humans had released. They're eating the station, the High Arbitrator realized, converting it into raw materials. The transmission ended as the last section of Rigel Station dissolved into component atoms. 20 billion Council citizens dead in less than an hour. Sir, another aide approached, this one moving with the careful precision that indicated really bad news. Long-range sensors are detecting human activity in the Centauri sector. The High Arbitrator pulled up a galactic map. The Centauri sector was deep in Council space, protected by layers of defenses and early warning systems. No human force should have been able to reach it undetected. Show me. The map updated, revealing a cluster of red indicators moving through Council territory, but the movement pattern was wrong. Instead of the organized advance of a military fleet, it looked like the spread of a virus. They're not invading, the military coordinator said slowly. They're metastasizing. The truth was even worse than an invasion. The humans had somehow seeded Council space with hidden bases, automated factories, and self-replicating weapons. Like a cancer, they were growing throughout the galaxy from within. How long have they been doing this? The High Arbitrator demanded. Analysis suggests at least 6 months. Possibly longer, 6 months. The humans had been infiltrating Council space since before the war even started. While the Council debated humanity's fate, the humans had been preparing to destroy them. New contact, the sensor operator announced. Single human vessel approaching the homeworld. It's broadcasting a message. On screen. The transmission showed a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. She looked tired but determined, and when she spoke, her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. People of the Galactic Council, she began. I am Admiral Sarah Chen representing the human race. You have made war upon us. You have destroyed our worlds and murdered our people. You believed your superior technology would make victory inevitable. The High Arbitrator recognized her. The former ambassador who had refused the Council's ultimatum. You were wrong, Chen continued. Humans don't fight the way you do. We don't follow your rules. We don't respect your limitations. When you threaten our existence, we become something you can't understand or predict. Behind her, the human ship's weapons were powering up. Somehow, impossibly, they had gotten within striking distance of the Council homeworld. "This is our final offer," Chen said. "Withdraw all forces from human space. Recognize our independence. Leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. And if we refuse?" the High Arbitrator asked, though he already knew the answer. Chen's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. "Then we'll teach the galaxy what humans do to those who try to cage us." The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the human ship began to glow with the same ominous light they had seen at Vega Prime. The High Arbitrator realized that humanity had never been trying to win a war. They had been trying to deliver a message. The message was simple. Some species could not be conquered. Some species would burn down the galaxy rather than kneel. General Marcus Thompson stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Manifest Destiny, watching the Altair system burn. 3 council worlds had once orbited the star, home to nearly 50 billion aliens. Now there was only debris and radiation. "Stellar Lance is recharging," reported his weapons officer. "Ready to fire again in 6 hours," Thompson nodded. The Stellar Lance was humanity's answer to the Council's star-killing technology, but the humans had made it portable. Instead of requiring massive installations, human ships could destabilize stars with focused gravity waves. It was cruder than the Council's method, but it worked. More importantly, it could be used repeatedly. "Next target?" he asked. "Procyon system, sir. 7 billion hegemony species. They surrendered 2 days ago. But command says to proceed anyway." Thompson felt a flicker of something that might have been conscience. The Procyon worlds had raised white flags, broadcasting their surrender on all frequencies. Their only crime was belonging to the same galactic alliance that had tried to exterminate humanity. He pushed the feeling aside. The humans had learned a valuable lesson in the past 4 months of war. Mercy was a luxury they couldn't afford. "Set course for Procyon," he ordered. The human fleet that followed Thompson through space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Most of the ships had started as civilian vessels, colony ships, cargo haulers, research stations, mining platforms. But human engineers had converted them into weapons of unprecedented destructive power. The Manifest Destiny itself had been a generation ship, designed to carry 1 million colonists to a new world. Now its cargo bays held nova bombs, antimatter warheads, and stranger weapons that human scientists had developed in the depths of their fury. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Chen." "Put her through." Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Earth's orbital command center. She looked older than when Thompson had last seen her, aged by months of coordinating humanity's war of extinction. "Marcus," she said without preamble. "Status report." "Altair system is pacified," Thompson replied. "Total sterilization achieved. No survivors detected," Chen nodded. "Good. The Council needs to understand the price of threatening Earth's children." Thompson had heard that phrase before. It had become humanity's unofficial war cry, broadcast by human forces across the galaxy. The message was always the same. Earth's children could not be caged, and those who tried would pay with everything they held dear. "What's our next target?" Thompson asked. "The Vegan Confederacy has requested a meeting," Chen replied. "They want to discuss terms for their surrender." Thompson raised an eyebrow. The Vegan Confederacy was one of the Council's founding members, ancient beyond human understanding. If they were trying to surrender, it meant the war was reaching its final phase. "Do we accept?" he asked. Chen's expression was cold. "We accept the meeting, but there are no terms. Complete surrender or complete destruction, those are their only options." The transmission ended, leaving Thompson alone with his thoughts. He pulled up the galactic map, studying the red zones that marked human advances. In 4 months, humanity had gone from a single star system to controlling nearly a quarter of the galaxy. But control was the wrong word. Humanity wasn't conquering territory. They were sterilizing it. The human doctrine was simple. Any species that had supported the Council's war against humanity would be eliminated. Not defeated, not subjugated, but completely erased from existence. No exceptions, no mercy, no second chances. It was working. Species after species had tried to surrender only to discover that humans weren't interested in surrender. They wanted extinction. The galaxy was learning that threatening human children came with a price that couldn't be paid, only suffered. "Sir," the sensor officer announced, "jump complete. We're in the Procyon system." Thompson looked at the tactical display. 7 worlds circled the star, each one sending out desperate surrender signals. The planets were beautiful, covered in alien cities that represented thousands of years of civilization. "Open a channel to all planets," Thompson ordered. The communication system activated, and Thompson's voice was broadcast to every corner of the Procyon system. "People of Procyon," he began, "I am General Marcus Thompson of the human species. 4 months ago, your government joined an alliance dedicated to the extermination of my people. You voted to destroy Earth. You cheered when human worlds burned." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, you learn the consequences of that decision." The stellar lance fired, sending invisible waves of distorted gravity toward Procyon's star. The effect wasn't immediate, but within hours the star would begin to destabilize. The system would have perhaps a day before the supernova consumed everything. "No mercy," Thompson said, closing the channel. As the human fleet prepared to jump to their next target, Thompson received a priority message from deep space. One of humanity's long-range scouts had made contact with something unexpected. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "Captain Williams is requesting immediate conference." "She says it's urgent." Captain Williams appeared on screen, broadcasting from the edge of human-controlled space. Her exploration vessel looked battered, scarred by weapons fire and patched with makeshift repairs. "General," she said, "you need to see this." The display changed, showing a massive fleet of alien ships. But these weren't council vessels. The ships were sleek and predatory, moving in formations that suggested military precision beyond anything the council had achieved. "Who are they?" Thompson asked. "The Devourers," Williams replied. "We found records in a council database. They're an extragalactic species that tried to invade this galaxy about 5,000 years ago. The council fought them off barely." Thompson studied the alien fleet. Even through the static of long-range sensors, he could see the ships were enormous, each one the size of a human city. "How many?" he asked. "Best estimate? About 10,000 ships. They're approaching from the galactic rim, moving toward council space." Thompson felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate control. An extragalactic invasion force was heading toward a galaxy that humanity had spent months systematically destroying. "Their timing is interesting," he observed. "That's what worries me," Williams agreed. "Sir, I think they've been waiting, watching the war, letting us weaken the council before making their move." The implications were staggering. While humanity had been focused on destroying the council, another threat had been approaching. The galaxy was about to face invasion by a species that had nearly conquered it once before. But this time, there would be no united galactic defense. The council was shattered, their fleets destroyed or scattered. Most of their member species were extinct, victims of humanity's war of vengeance. "Estimated time until they reach inhabited systems?" Thompson asked. 6 months, maybe less." Thompson closed the communication and stared at the tactical display. Humanity had spent 4 months teaching the galaxy what happened to those who threatened Earth's children. Now another threat was approaching, one that might pose an existential danger to both humans and the few surviving council species. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity's war of extinction had left the galaxy defenseless against a greater threat. The species they had been methodically destroying might have been the only ones capable of stopping the approaching invasion. But Thompson had his orders. The council species had tried to destroy humanity, and they would pay the price for that decision, even if it meant leaving the galaxy vulnerable to outside attack. After all, if humanity couldn't have the galaxy, no one else could either. The human fleet jumped toward their next target, leaving the Procyon system to burn behind them. In the distance, invisible to human sensors, the Devourer fleet continued its approach. The galaxy was about to learn that some conflicts don't end with victory or defeat. Sometimes they end with everyone losing. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of the Council homeworld, her boots crunching on crystallized glass that had once been a magnificent alien city. Above her, Earth's flag flew next to the black banner of human vengeance, both rippling in the artificial atmosphere generators that kept the planet barely habitable. 6 months had passed since the war began, The Galactic Council was dead. Final count? She asked Colonel Harrison, her aide-de-camp. Harrison consulted his tablet, his face grim. 47 species extinct. 12 more reduced to less than 1 million survivors. 321 worlds sterilized. Approximately 2 trillion Council citizens confirmed dead. Chen nodded. The numbers had stopped having meaning weeks ago. What mattered was the message humanity had sent to the galaxy. Earth's children could not be caged. Any word from the survivor enclaves? She asked. The Rigel survivors are still trying to negotiate, Harrison replied. They're offering complete technological surrender in exchange for being allowed to exist as a primitive society. Response? General Thompson wants to finish them off. Says we can't risk them rebuilding. Chen walked to the edge of the building's observation deck, looking out over the devastated landscape. The Council homeworld had been the crown jewel of galactic civilization, home to the most advanced technology and the greatest artworks in known space. Now it was a wasteland of fused sand and twisted metal. The humans had been thorough. What about the Devourers? She asked. Harrison's expression darkened. Still approaching. Latest intelligence puts them at 8 months out, maybe less. Their advanced scouts have already reached the outer rim. The Devourers. The one variable humanity hadn't planned for. While human fleets had been busy exterminating the Council species, an extragalactic invasion force had been approaching. According to captured Council records, the Devourers had tried to conquer the galaxy once before, only to be barely repelled by a united galactic defense. Now there would be no united defense. There was barely anyone left to defend. Recommendations from the Joint Chiefs? Chen asked. Split decision. Half want to continue the extermination campaign, finish off the remaining Council species before the Devourers arrive. The other half want to start preparing defenses against the invasion. Chen turned away from the ruined cityscape. The choice before humanity was stark. Finish what they had started or prepare for a new war against an enemy they barely understood. Schedule a meeting with the survivor delegates, she decided. All of them. Ma'am? You heard me. Every remaining Council species that still has a government. I want them here in 48 hours. Harrison looked confused but nodded. Yes, ma'am. 2 days later, Chen stood in what had once been the Council's great assembly hall. The magnificent chamber was scarred by weapon fire and partially collapsed, but it was still functional, a fitting place for what might be the galaxy's final diplomatic meeting. The survivors came as requested. Representatives from a dozen species, all that remained of the great galactic civilization that had ruled for 10,000 years. They looked broken, defeated, and utterly terrified of the humans who had destroyed everything they knew. The High Arbitrator was among them, his proud bearing replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had watched his entire civilization burn. He had aged visibly in the past months, his elegant form now bent with exhaustion and grief. You asked for this meeting, Chen began without preamble. I assume you know why. The High Arbitrator spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. The Devourers approach. Our ancient enemy returns while the galaxy lies defenseless. Defenseless because we destroyed your fleets, Chen pointed out. Defenseless because we exterminated your people. This is the consequence of your decision to make war on humanity. A representative of the Vegan Confederacy, one of only 3 survivors of her entire species, stepped forward. Please, she said, her translator struggling with the emotion in her voice. We know we cannot undo what was done. We know we deserve your hatred. But the Devourers will not stop with us. They will consume everything, including your own worlds. Chen had expected this argument. The Council survivors were hoping that humanity's self-interest would override their desire for vengeance. They weren't entirely wrong. The Devourers are indeed a threat, Chen acknowledged. Our analysts estimate they have enough firepower to sterilize every inhabited world in the galaxy, including Earth. Hope flickered in the alien's eyes. Perhaps the humans could be reasoned with after all. However, Chen continued, humanity has learned not to rely on others for our defense. We will face the Devourers alone as we faced you. That's suicide, the High Arbitrator protested. The Devourers defeated our combined fleets at the height of our power. No single species can stand against them. Chen smiled, and the expression was cold enough to make the alien delegate step back. You still don't understand what we are, she said. You think like prey animals concerned with survival and preservation. Humans think like predators, When threatened, we don't run or hide. We attack. She activated a holographic display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. The alien ships were massive, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets. This is what the Devourers looked like 5,000 years ago, Chen said. Impressive, overwhelming, unstoppable. The display changed, showing recent intelligence on the approaching fleet. This is what they look like now. Notice anything different? The High Arbitrator studied the images carefully. They're larger, more heavily armed. They've grown stronger during their exile. Exactly. While you were building your peaceful galactic civilization, they were preparing for war. They've spent 5,000 years becoming better at destruction. Chen paused, letting the implications sink in. The difference is, so have we. The display changed again, showing human ship designs that the Council survivors had never seen before. Vessels that looked more like mobile weapons platforms than traditional starships, bristling with exotic weapons and protected by technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Humanity has been preparing for this war since we first learned of the Devourer threat, Chen explained. Every species we exterminated taught us something new about galactic warfare. Every world we sterilized gave us resources to build better weapons. Your civilization's death was not just vengeance, it was preparation. The alien delegates stared at the human warship designs with growing horror. The vessels were clearly designed for one purpose, maximum destruction. You planned this, the High Arbitrator whispered. The war, the extermination, all of it was preparation for fighting the Devourers. Partially, Chen admitted. We would have destroyed you anyway for threatening our children. But knowing about the Devourers made the decision easier. Better to face them with a galaxy empty of potential enemies than risk fighting on two fronts. One of the surviving delegates, a crystalline being whose species Chen couldn't identify, found the courage to speak. What happens to us? It asked. Chen considered the question. The remaining Council species numbered in the low millions, scattered across a handful of hidden colonies and refugee ships. They posed no threat to humanity, but they also served no purpose. You survived, she said finally. Humanity claims no dominion over civilians who played no role in the war against us. Find some empty worlds in the galactic rim. Build your new civilizations. Try to learn from the mistakes of your predecessors. Relief flooded through the assembled delegates. They had expected extinction, not exile. However, Chen continued, and the relief vanished. If any of your species ever again poses a threat to humanity, we will finish what we started. This is not mercy. This is practicality. We have bigger concerns now. The meeting ended with the Council survivors filing out in silence, grateful to be alive, but knowing they would spend the rest of their existence as refugees in their own galaxy. When they were gone, Chen turned to Harrison. Status of the Devourer countermeasures? Project Ragnarok is proceeding on schedule, Harrison reported. The stellar weaponization program should be complete within 6 months. Operation Prometheus has begun preliminary testing of the reality bombs, and the Omega Protocol is, well, it's ready when you give the word. Chen nodded. Humanity's response to the Devourer threat was characteristically extreme. If the approaching fleet wanted to devour the galaxy, they would find that humanity had turned the entire galaxy into a weapon. And our evacuation plans? Earth and the major colonies are ready for immediate population transfer if necessary. The generation ships are standing by. Chen looked out at the stars through the damaged ceiling of the assembly hall. Somewhere out there, an invasion fleet was approaching that made the Council look like children playing war games. But humanity was ready. The Devourers had spent 5,000 years preparing to conquer a galaxy. Humanity had spent 6 months learning how to destroy one. The galaxy was about to discover which philosophy was more effective. In the end, Chen reflected, the Council had been right about one thing. Humanity was too dangerous to be allowed freedom in a civilized galaxy. Good thing there wasn't going to be a civilized galaxy much longer. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.